that have tried to lobby for certain rules restrictions to be looked at before they've been enacted. And I think that what happened is that an offspring from that was the Black Coaches Association, which was formed about 7 or 8 years ago. The Black Coaches Association, you know, felt that some of the rules that were being imposed, like the restrictions in scholarships, the reduced number of scholarships, even though those proposals had been passed by a lot of universities, and the reasoning behind it was what they call cost containment measures. Obviously, it costs a lot of money to run an athletic program. So in men's basketball, for example, they went from 15 scholarships to 13 scholarships in an effort to reduce costs. In football, I think they decreased it by as many as 17, or it's projected to be increased by as many as 17 in 1AA football in the next couple years. Well, all those things sounded good because everybody's looking for a way to make the most out of their money and for cost containment. And the National Association of Basketball Coaches were dealing with it as an issue, as a basketball issue. And I think it fell on kind of some deaf ears because of the fact that it was felt by a lot of people that coaches were just trying to get more scholarships so they'd have more players so they could win more games. And that wasn't necessarily the mission. Some of the leading black coaches in America, some of the most visible black coaches in America, called a summit for Washington, D.C. I was fortunate enough that Dr. Hefner let me attend, you know, representing Tennessee State University. But John Thompson, George Ravlin, Nolan Richardson, Clem Haskins, some of I guess, the most visible black coaches in America met there. And the mission was not so much a basketball issue as it was a social issue. George Ravlin had done a study and found these statistics to be true, that 99% of all black athletes that receive scholarships receive them in the sports of football and basketball. When you reduce those two sports, you know, there's a possibility over a 10-year period that there may be anywhere from 6,000 to 7,000 young black males ages 17 and 18 restricted from having the opportunity to go to college and get a college education. We're well aware there are other avenues to get to college, but if you look in the black community, and every coach that was there had been afforded the opportunity to go to college through an athletic scholarship, you know, you realize that it has a tremendous impact in the black community, a tremendous impact on the historically black colleges and universities. So our mission was not so much to look at it from just a financial standpoint, but from a social issue. Because when you restrict people from the opportunity to go to college, then they have to make other adjustments. They have to find a way themselves. And those are the type of things that we're trying to guard against. It was social issues. When you talk about crime, when you talk about drug use, when you talk about a lost generation of young black males, we felt as role models, you know, coaches had been successful, that we wouldn't want history to look back on this and say, well, what did you do, you know, to help bring attention to a problem that I don't think that the college presidents and the people at the NCAA had realized. I firmly believe this one issue, and there were some other issues, but this one issue will be resolved, and I think you'll see a restoration in scholarships because it does have a tremendous impact, and it impacts more negatively and more harmful to a young black male athlete aspiring to go to college.
And so that was one of the central issues that dealing with the scholarships and with the opportunities that were made available, which is to say that, as you indicated earlier, that you saw it primarily as a social issue rather than as an issue of number of scholarships.
Right, it's more of a social issue as far as the Black Coaches Association is concerned because of the fact of some of the things that I've mentioned earlier. And I think that, you know, we have to, as coaches, you know, really be more aware of sometimes the social impact of certain legislation. And that's what we were trying to do. We were trying to bring national attention. We went to Washington, D.C. to get support from the Congressional Black Caucus. They are just average working people that are in Congress that have a lot of other things to do, so they didn't fully understand, you know, what our mission was. But after meeting with them, we got their full support. You know, they're going to meet as a task force and meet with the representatives of the NCAA and discuss, you know, that issue and a few other issues that were brought up on the table. One of the other main concerns was the fact that the NCAA has so much legislation on how much involvement a coach can have in the community or how much involvement he can have with his own team. And I think
and what are some of the rules and regulations in reference to
well, there's certain times in which you can even go out in the community and speak to youth groups, because there may be a violation, because there may have been someone that the NCAA would have felt was a recruitable athlete. Say if the boys club calls me and they say, Coach Allen, we want you to come out and be our guest speaker, or we want you to come out and just talk to some of our youth down there and maybe bring a player. There's certain times of the year we can't do that, because if they're in the 9th grade or older, and those are the type of young men that you want to reach, they may be termed recruitable athletes. And those are some things that I think the NCAA is off base. I don't think any coach is trying to gain an unfair recruiting advantage, but if someone in the community says, well, this coach could be a role model, he could make the difference in this young man's life, well, I would like for you to talk to him, then we feel that as coaches, all coaches, but in particular all black coaches, feel like we have an obligation and a duty to do these type of things in the communities in which we reside. So those were some of the issues also, was trying to get the NCAA to cut back on the legislation that would restrict a coach from being more active in the community, that would also restrict a coach at certain times when he could even talk with his own team. There are only certain times during the year when you can have a quote-unquote team meeting with your own players, those players that you worked hard to recruit, who want to come to you and feel close to you. There are only certain times in the year that we can actually talk to them in regard to basketball, academics, or what have you. And I think that you know, sometimes the rules had good intent, but you know, they just weren't workable, and they just weren't the type of situations that you could blanket across the board and say this is fair for everyone. Each individual and each individual school is different, and I just think as coaches, and in particular Black Coaches Association, felt that we needed more leeway in those areas.
Now, you've got an upcoming season, Coach, and I know ordinarily you start off your season by having Midnight Madness, and this show will be aired a couple of days before the beginning, I think, of your upcoming season. But what can you tell our audience this morning about your upcoming season in terms of your schedule and some of the other things that you think are important?
Well, our first home game will be December the 6th. It's against Fisk University, and it's a game that we think will have a lot of community interest. Then our next home game will be December 18th against North Carolina A&T, which has been a traditional rival of TSU. The North Carolina A&T game is on the 18th of December, and it's a Saturday. The Fisk game is Monday night. Our non-conference schedule in December is very, very difficult. Our first home game is Monday, November 29th at Jackson State. And Jackson State has an outstanding program, and last year we were very fortunate to defeat them in our first home game last year. So now we go down and play them in their first home game for this coming year. But we have a trip to Hawaii by way of UCLA. We play on the West Coast in Los Angeles. We play UCLA, then we play in a tournament in Hawaii. Our first opponent there would be the University of Alabama, Birmingham. The other two schools are the University of Hawaii and the University of Missouri, Kansas City. Then we come back and play our OVC schedule. Prior to going to Hawaii, we do play in a tournament in Cincinnati, where I think there are a lot of people from Nashville that want to go up there. It's on the weekend of December 2nd and 3rd. We play Central State on Friday, and we play Southern University out of Baton Rouge, which was also an NCAA participant last year. And Southern, Coppin State, and Tennessee State were the only three historically black colleges and universities to go to the NCAA Division I last year. So that's going to match us up against a fine Southern team. That'll be like December 3rd and 4th up in the Cincinnati area, and it's at Riverfront Coliseum. And so I know a lot of people from here are thinking about going up, and we definitely would need the support. Then we get into OVC play. January 3rd, we play at Austin Peay. And then after that, you know, the rest of the games will be, you know, home and away in the OVC. Our final game of the season is a non-conference game at the University of Alabama. But we're looking forward to an outstanding season. Obviously, we've got some talented people. We're the defending champions. Our goal, obviously, is to go out and do well, do better than we did last year. We know it's a tough road ahead of us, but with the support and with our players playing with the same intensity and enthusiasm that they had last year, you know, I feel it's a very attainable goal.
When you think about the OVC and NCAA, what can you tell our audience about the performance of your players at that level?
Well, I thought,
especially NCAA.
Well, I thought that last year we performed quite well once we got in the NCAA. We were a little bit overmatched with Seton Hall, but I really felt that they had the experience of being in the NCAA for several years. That was our first trip there. You know, our big goal is to win the Ohio Valley Conference. If you win the Ohio Valley Conference tournament like we did last year, there's an automatic bid to the NCAA. So first things first, we've really got to concentrate and do well in the conference and win the conference tournament to get back to the NCAA. Once we get back there, we should be fortunate enough to win the OVC again. Then I think we'll be more relaxed. We'll understand better what it takes to compete at that level. And then again, it's all a matter of what teams you draw, you know, in the tournament. As I said, last year Southern went, they drew Georgia Tech and pulled off one of the big upsets in the first round. I think we're capable of winning games in the NCAA if we do those things necessary to get there. And that means doing well in the OVC, especially in the OVC tournament, winning that and then moving on to the NCAA.
Coach, we've got about a minute before we end the show for today. Any final comments that you'd like to leave with our audience, especially about ticket sales and how they might be able to purchase a ticket? Do that in the last minute.
Right. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you for having me on the show. We do have season tickets available and individual game tickets. The number is 320-3594. Our ticket manager is Carl Pillow, and you know, Carl will talk with you or someone off of his staff in terms of season tickets. I really hope that this year, that for the first time ever, we can have a legitimate sellout in the Gentry Center. We've got a tremendous amount of home games, and we certainly hope that the fans will come out and support us, and we can get that one big, or maybe many, sellouts this year in the Gentry Center.
And I'm sure you will. And Coach, let me thank you for coming by and bringing this handsome trophy to allow us to see what it looks like, what an OVC, Ohio Valley Conference champ trophy looks like. And we certainly appreciate that, and thank you. And let me encourage you to tune in again next week for another informative edition of Comments. Thank you and good morning.